Greetings, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the weekly Mormon News Roundup. I am your humble host, D-Base. That's talent on loan from Kolob. It is September 21st. It's episode 178. It is 2025. I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C., where the truth runs free. We will be ruminating on the great and spacious beehive tonight. So thanks so much for joining us to discuss contemporary Mormonism. We do have a big episode on tap, but before we get going, I'd like to welcome on my program my fabulous co-host, Randy. Randy, how you doing?
D-Base, every day above ground's a great day.
Absolutely. Now, who are you and what are you all about?
You know, I'm, first of all, I'm thrilled to be on your show. I'm kind of a fanboy. You were one of the first podcasts I ever watched as I transitioned out of the church. And I've been a fan of your content ever since. I was born back in the olden days. Actually, I was adopted into a family that was LDS. My father, my biological father, was a mafia member. And my mother, I was illegitimate. I'll just tell you, I was a bastard. And I was adopted away by parents that were LDS in Mesa, Arizona. And so I was inducted right into the cult, if you don't mind me calling it that. And I just started to be, well, it didn't take me long before I was full-fledged, going strong, true believing Mormon kid. You're muted, D-Base.
Well, it's great to have you on board. I really appreciate you here. We'll get to know you a little bit as we go through the episode. You've got a channel. You've got a lot of things that you do, and we definitely will be covering that a little bit later. I'm flattered that you still watch the podcast. That is gratifying. I appreciate that. Now, this week we are covering with the great Randy here, Mormon News Roundup. This is, we're going to be discussing the secret lives of Mormon wives. We're going to be discussing the major aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination. The Mormon Church has also had a number of real estate purchases. There's temple updates. We've got a big episode on tap for you. We're going to jump right in here with the secret lives of Mormon wives. The Taylor Frankie Paul, who is the Mormon wife star. She's going to be the next Bachelorette. This is a big announcement here of one of the most famous Latter-day Saints alive.
Okay. Who wants to marry a Mormon wife, huh? 1 week ago, we learned, I know that, I'm reading the prompter, folks. But here's the deal, and I know that a lot of people are, well, maybe people have mixed feelings about this because she's quite controversial. We learned that Taylor Frankie Paul, the star of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, will be the next Bachelorette. She'll be picking from a broad pool of bachelors. Applications are open. The show will air sometime next year. Longtime Bachelor fans say Taylor may be a breath of fresh air for the franchise, which is one of the longest running reality shows in America.
Yes, but I've also heard the other side of that. There are a lot of Bachelor fans who are furious about this selection. So we want to chat about it. Our friend Rachel Krause is here to talk about Taylor. Whatever side of the fence you're on, like, I don't think anybody really saw this coming.
No, absolutely not. She's certainly a shocking choice. A self-admitted swinger. She's someone who's been divorced. She'll be the Bachelorette's first mom.
She has 3 kids,
she
right?
has 3 kids.
Been a Bachelor
2 from her husband, and then 1 from Dakota, her baby Danny, who of course we learned about in the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. She's a choice, right? It's somebody who is going to spice it up. She's an influencer. She already comes from the family, you know, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives was on Hulu, so the slide over to ABC maybe wasn't necessarily a surprise there. She's certainly a polarizing character. So I think a bit of a shock, but maybe a needed one for a show that I think a lot of people have been kind of slowly turning off.
Yeah, that just pulled
so
me in.
boring these days.
It is. I'm used to like the good girls that they pick, right? Like I used to watch, was it Joe? Remember?
Oh, JoJo Fletcher.
JoJo. Yeah, so those are the days I watched it. And very like cookie cutter. I want a little bit of spice. So I am excited about this, but I don't know much about her from the reality show Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Is she a practicing Mormon? Will it affect the people that she chooses? Do you know if she's going to be looking for a specific religion or no?
I think she touches about it a little bit in the show that, you know, she's somebody who's still very involved with the church, but I don't think necessarily somebody who is as strict as some other characters that we have seen in that show. I think she's pretty open. She seems to be a pretty flexible mom that we see in that show. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what she kind of gloms on toward, who she kind of looks to date in the show. I'm kind of interested to see what she's going to do and if she's willing to move out of Utah to do it, where she's really built up a following amazing friends. Her entire life is there.
Yeah, I've been a Bachelorette fan since the early days. Bachelorette more so, the very first one, Trista and Ryan.
Yes.
That was like, what, 2002, 2003?
Yes.
They live in Colorado.
Never here.
And they've been married all these years. But to me on these shows, it's not necessarily the Bachelor, Bachelorette, but it is the collection of men or women. And I have to think that she's going to bring out the crazy in America. And I think these guys are going to be just entertaining.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm really excited to see kind of how things unfold, because normally you kind of see like the drama stirred up and people are always like, oh, well, are the producers creating it? I think Taylor brings her own drama wherever she goes. And she's a lot of fun to watch because she's a very authentic person. So I think she's really interesting.
Is it just no filter? Is that how you would describe her?
She's very
Zero
blunt.
filter? Okay.
That's one way. Yes,
Oh, I have no
describe
clue,
it.
but you guys have definitely sold me.
Yes. I think she's
gonna
very
be a
blunt.
good season.
her?
Oh, absolutely.
I
She is
am
my
too.
favorite in the show. I cannot be more clear. She is incredibly polarizing. I love her so much.
Yeah, I agree. I like her too.
I haven't watched The Bachelor for years. I will be watching her season very
They
closely.
made the right decision.
Yes.
All right.
Also hope the guys have good intentions, because she does have 3 babies that you got to think about too.
So, real quick question for you here, Randy. Number one, are you going to be watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives or The Bachelorette? Or number two, why do people really find Taylor Frankie Paul so watchable? She certainly turns the eyeballs.
Well, first of all, I cannot lay claim to being a very active watcher of The Bachelor or Bachelorette, but this season, you can bet your bottom I'm going to be watching. And my daughter turned me on to Taylor, telling me that she was just the best thing that's ever been created. So my fiance and I, we do watch The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and I do have to say that Taylor has an entertaining streak through her. So yeah, we'll be watching.
Yeah, there's no doubt that she turns the eyeballs. I argue that she is the most famous Latter-day Saint alive. If you were to compare her to, I don't know, Mitt Romney or Russell M. Nelson or really anyone else out there, I don't think that she would lose to anyone. She may be the most famous Mormon who's ever lived. And I know that you and I, who know who Joseph Smith is, a hell of a lot of people don't know who he is. So yes, she's going to bring the excitement to The Bachelorette. There's no doubt about that. And quite frankly, I might watch it just because she's involved with it, even though I don't watch a lot of reality television. Yeah.
Right. I think it's a pretty bold statement, by the way, for them to say that she's still very involved with the church. I kind of doubt that.
You know, she does
from what
post
I've
herself from time to time going to church. I don't know how super active, whether she has callings, but she does post on her Instagram her going to church with her children. In fact, you can find a reel of 10 hours of every single TikTok and Instagram reel right here on the Mormon News Roundup of Taylor Frankie Paul if you want. And you can also find a video that I put out called I Watched 10 Hours of Taylor Frankie Paul so that you don't have to. So there's a lot of offerings about Taylor Frankie Paul. Speaking of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, because this definitely drives the headlines out there. Jen Affleck from The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives was told by her LDS in-laws that they were related to famous actor Ben Affleck. Well, turns out the fans of the show quickly researched and learned that this was not accurate. But a new Dunkin' Donuts commercial capitalizes on this imaginary connection. Reminds me of how many LDS families say that their ancestor was a bodyguard to Joseph Smith. The Mormon moment continues. Let's check out this Dunkin' Donuts commercial here. that ought to be pretty entertaining.
I love this.
Affleck.
Expecting my cousin Ben? Nah. When Duncan has something packed with amazing value, they bring me in. Jen Affleck, the value Affleck.
The value Affleck?
Yep, twice the personality, half the price. I'm a steal, just like Duncan's $6 meal deal. A coffee, bacon, egg, and cheese, and hash browns for $6? That's value. You know what's not value? Ben. Why overpay for something that nobody wants? He's so dated. I'm younger, hotter. Can you believe Ben's only 53? And it's not like a young 53. It's like a weathered 53.
Rude.
Ugh, that was bad, but not as bad as those grays.
Totally average 53. Right down the 53 fairway.
You ain't talking money, I don't understand.
Well, they seem to bring they seem to bring drama wherever they go, Randy, don't they?
Yeah, bless his heart, Ben was a good sport about that. And she did a pretty good job herself. I was impressed with that commercial.
Yeah, I'm not a big commercial fan myself, but they are very entertaining, all of those Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. There's a lot of scandal, a lot of drama. They throw a lot of shade. There's a lot of gossip. If that's your cup of tea, then I think you would really enjoy watching The Bachelor. Changing gears, the church here has says that it is instituting water-saving landscaping measures here across its chapels, which I find to be very interesting here. There's a brief ad that goes before this, but the bees fly around, landing on the lavender plants. Nearby, a subsurface drip irrigation system spurts to life. The landscaping in front of a chapels in the neighborhoods has been completely redesigned to feature water-wise plants. Let's see what the church is doing here.
To members, yeah, we need to work on things. We'll continue to do that.
I'm Ben Winslow in Salt Lake City. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a major property owner here in Utah, and the faith says it is making changes to its landscaping in an effort to be more sustainable.
Parks with the county.
This Latter-day Saint chapel in Salt Lake City's Avenues neighborhood has been redesigned to be water-wise.
We were looking at transitioning from a lawn-dominated landscape to something that's a little more water-wise, but still acceptable to the neighborhood.
The Great Salt Lake and Colorado River are both in the midst of water crises, with state political leaders urging everyone to conserve more. The church has been praised for its donations of water to help and criticized for its chapels with lush green lawns in Utah's ongoing drought.
I think the church is trying to work with the conditions that we have as best as possible.
David Wright, who's a landscape architect for the church, says they are making changes. The church is installing subsurface drip irrigation systems and smart timers. They look at where trees and pollinator plants are best. Lawn does have some benefits, including reducing heat island effects, but Kentucky bluegrass is getting replaced in some places for varieties of turf that use less water.
We aren't necessarily doing it everywhere at the time being, but we're looking for the best ways to address the topic of water conservation,
including a number of chapels in the St. George area.
Are you seeing water savings? Are you documenting?
We're early in that topic, especially on these new ones that have just gone in, but theoretically, you can save quite a bit of water.
Fox 13 News has received a number of complaints about churches watering in the middle of the day. Here's what Wright says people should do if they see it.
Talk with a member of the church, and anybody who's on a ward council has the ability to fill out a facilities incident report. They can say, hey, water's running at this time. You need to come out and take care of it.
I think now they're also seeing that they can play a role in calling Latter-day Saints to be good stewards of the earth.
The environmental group Latter-day Saint Earth Stewardship says it believes the church is making progress, but also thinks more can be done.
The church recognizes that. They've taken some steps toward that. But in those steps, they've also recognized, hey, this isn't an easy or inexpensive thing to do, and it's something we're going to have to do over time. Having said all that, my position, I'd continue to love to see them move more quickly.
The church now has an Office of Sustainability to help the faith's efforts, and it encourages members to adopt water-wise practices.
Be conscientious from a sustainability standpoint and water conservation standpoint.
Now, the church has donated water to help the Great Salt Lake. Asked if more donations are planned, the faith says that it continues to explore ways and is looking at future contributions. In Salt Lake City, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Okay, Randy, is the church doing enough with regards to water conservation, or is this all talk and no show?
Well, you know, I'm impressed that they're doing this. However, I think they may find a few drawbacks. First of all, they're giving kids and vandals a lot of weaponry to throw through windows. And being raised in Arizona, you know, those types of yards are everywhere. And you know, the gravel mixes one type with another. I noticed they had various types of gravel. I think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to save them any maintenance, but if it saves water and conserves, I'm glad they're doing their part.
Yeah, definitely. Now, a couple of years ago, the church made a similar statement and did not follow through with their conservation efforts as documented by Axios. So hopefully they will follow through with their desires to be good earth stewards. Now, the irony of the church water conservation is brought to our attention here once again by Rebecca Biblioteca of the Mormonish podcast, where she made this observation. The Heber Valley Temple construction project is right around 8 feet, and you can see these pictures here. It has struck water. Now getting ready to pump out 1 million gallons a day for over a month during the construction, and gravity dewater up to 300,000 gallons every day going forward. So perennially, if that temple goes to construction, it's going to have all of that water taken out and pumped into the Provo River, and that's going to lead to a lot of erosion. So what I'm seeing here on one hand is the church trying to say, hey, we're going to be good stewards, but when it comes to the temple, they don't seem to be following their own advice. I see this as somewhat incongruous.
Yeah, you know, I was curious. They're pumping all that water out of the aquifer, and it goes back into the river. What happens to the vacancy that is left under the ground? Is that going to cause more issues?
I do not believe that it is, but I don't know if it's actually something that is going to actually happen, because this is breaking news here. Just, I believe it was yesterday, the Heber Valley LDS Temple construction is on hold on an injunction. So this is, according to Ryan Josiah and others, this is the church's most controversial temple, and it is still in legal litigation. Let's get the update here.
So I'm actually at Costco, and I just got the news that the Utah Supreme Court has ruled, and it looks like the injunction has been granted because of the ongoing lawsuit with the Utah Heber Valley Temple, and they have said that construction must stop. So that's all we know so far, but it looks like the construction, water pumping, whatever's happening, the construction barely started, a week or so ago, but it looks like the Supreme Court has ruled that construction needs to stop, and the lawsuit will just kind of pick it up from there. So really interesting news from Heber Valley, Utah on the LDS Temple. I'm going to get back to my shopping.
It never used to be, Randy, that these temples would have lawsuits and go to Supreme Courts, and they used to always just kind of be greenlit through. And it seems like the church is having a rough go of it in certain municipalities with their temples.
Mark one up for the good guys, I say. I'm tickled to see them have to, I know they bully their way in eventually, but I like that people are finally putting their feet down.
Yeah, the church is batting very nearly 1,000 or 100% on its temples. It's only lost a couple of temples in its entire history as far as having them shut down. Temples like the Urda, Nevada temple, or the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania temple come to mind, and maybe the Beijing temple, and maybe the Russia temple. But, with the church having announced or having an operation up to 400 temples, they've only maybe missed on maybe 4 or 5 of them. So they're generally doing pretty well. I would anticipate that probably this temple eventually will go through. But this is a classic case of the church putting the cart before the horse. They broke ground on it, and they started the construction on it. And this is still the subject of litigation. So we'll be following it on the Mormon News Roundup there, to be sure. Any last thoughts on this one here, Randy?
Just that they really need all those temples. I have heard, and I haven't read it, so I don't have the receipt, that they're actually running out of names to process.
Yeah, I've heard that same sort of thing as well, that up to 30% of the temple names are actually just recycled. There's only so many names that you can find. I don't know if that's true or not. I've heard that. Speaking of also of temples here in Hawaii, here in Aiea, Hawaii, the church purchased a $60 million drive-in lot, which is awfully expensive here. This old camp drive-in lot sat untouched for decades, but now the church has purchased it. And what are they planning on doing with it? Well, of course, they're going to be building it into a new temple, a new multi-million-dollar purchase by the church, 14-acre lot, so that they can put in another temple here. The site has been an eyesore and a headache for area residents for years. You have a tendency to see a lot of crime and drug use for these type of things, but the plan is going to be to put in another temple. How do you feel about the church? I believe this is the 3rd temple in the Sandwich Islands. How do you feel about this one, Randy?
I have to ask myself, $60 million, how many kids could have a pair of shoes, finally, new shoes? How many kids could have jackets that don't normally get them? How many kids could have lunches that normally they have to go without? Or Christmases that they have to go without? 60 million would go a hell of a long ways for something in the name of charity. But instead, let's put up another big, glorious billboard.
Yeah, I mean, there's already 2 temples in Hawaii, and if we think back to the horrible wildfires that happened, I believe that was in 2022. I believe that that there was 5 people who died, and there was millions of dollars worth of damage. What did the church do with that? Well, they donated $1 million total in relief efforts. But we're seeing in just this parking lot alone, the church spends $60 million. You can see where the priority is very simply in between these 2 purchases. And that's not to mention that they're going to have to erect probably a $40 or $50 million temple on top of that. So we have $100 million being announced in temples, whereas we only had $1 million being announced to help people who had lost their homes, their livelihood, and other things. Obviously, the priorities, in my opinion, are quite askew. Any last thoughts on this one, Randy?
Well, yes, actually. Recently, we had the horrible floods in Texas where so many people lost their lives, their property. And Megan Connor, who's a dear friend of mine, went there to help, to do anything she could to help the victims. And she asked me if I would try to find some church authorities that could guide her in the right direction and see if where their efforts are, she wanted some guidance of where she should go and what she should do. And we made a discovery that all these churches in this town were getting together and helping where they could. But the LDS church, their form of helping was they were going to pray for the victims. Unless they were members. If they were members, they were offering some financial support.
Yeah, that's disappointing. And we've had Megan Connor on the Mormon News Roundup a couple of times as well. You can look back for some of her old episodes. And one other, before we get to the Charlie Kirk aftermath, because that is still a significant news item this week, is the new Latter-day Saint rededication of the Hill Cumorah Historic Site in New York. The actual place here, the visitor center at the Hill Cumorah Historic Site, has been renovated and recently reopened. I visited this particular visitor center here about 2 years ago on a family history tour with my entire family. So I'm familiar with it. So this is what is unusual, I think, about this one. Again, posted by Rebecca over there. Why all the pomp and circumstance of a rededication if the church itself says, as paraphrased in the article, that we don't know if this is the right hill from the Book of Mormon. We don't know if this is where the Book of Mormon took place. And here is the quote from the actual article. Elder David A. Bednar, a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, will lead a rededication ceremony for the Hill Cumorah Historic Site on September 21st. That's today. This is a ticketed event with hundreds expected to attend. It will be broadcast and available on the church's website for those who do not have tickets. And this is the most important quote from this article. The church does not take a position on whether the hill in Manchester is the same hill mentioned in the Book of Mormon or where the events of the Book of Mormon took place. So why in the world are we having a bunch of pomp and circumstance over dedication of a hill that we don't even take a position on whether this hill had anything to do with the Book of Mormon?
I don't think it matters, Dives. They've done this in the past. Take a topic, let's run with it. Let's get all the publicity we can. And if it's proven wrong, we'll just deny it. Can you tell I'm a little bitter?
I totally get you, Randy. Now, our featured news article of this week, this is not going to be the longest episode of all time, probably only 45 minutes here, is the Charlie Kirk assassination that happened in Mormonism's hallowed state, the Beehive State. What do we need to know about what has happened in the aftermath? It's certainly affecting Latter-day Saints. There's no doubt about it, because there is significant Mormon connection.
After the deadly shooting of controversial activist Charlie Kirk, President Trump says he hopes the country can heal. In a brief phone interview with NBC, the president repeated unfounded claims that the radical left is promoting violence, even as he called for the nation to heal. He added they stand in the way of reconciliation. His comments come as tributes pour in for Kirk, who was fatally shot during a campus debate at Utah Valley University. His widow speaking publicly for the first time since his death, vowing to continue her husband's fight.
The evildoers responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done. You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife. The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry.
Meanwhile, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, the suspected gunman, remains in the Utah County Jail. Investigators have been searching his apartment complex, collecting evidence and towing his vehicle. Sources tell ABC News the suspect's father recognized him in these photos and told his son to turn himself in. They said he initially said no, but then changed his mind.
A family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident.
Authorities say Robinson's family told the investigator he had been more political and talked about how he didn't like Kirk's views. Kirk's funeral is planned for September 21st at State Farm Stadium in Arizona. President Trump already saying he plans to attend. The organization Kirk founded, Turning Point USA, inviting supporters to join them in celebrating what they called his remarkable life and enduring legacy. Johnny Fernandez, ABC News.
Okay, so Randy, let's get your first thoughts here on this assassination. And is this Mormon related, or are we getting too political with this podcast?
You know, like everything else today, I think it's politicized to ridiculousness. First of all, I think it's horrible. It's a tragedy that someone had to lose their life because of their opinions, because of their indoctrination, or, you know, what they believe. That's never justified, unless you look back in the Book of Mormon. Then we have some justification by cutting heads off and slaughtering people. But I think that it's way too politicized, and I could probably go for 3 hours on this topic.
Yeah, no, my heart goes out to Charlie Kirk's wife there. That was really touching, and that was absolutely horrible. Whether you agree with Charlie Kirk or not, and I mostly disagree with him, no one deserves to lose their life for merely the words that they say. We should live in a society where the rule of law dictates people's actions. Now, we've seen a lot of Latter-day Saints, both active and ex-Mormons, really weighing in a lot on the Twitterverse here. And Gabrielle Blair, who is a very popular ex-Mormon here, she is responding to Mike Lee, who is an active Mormon. And Mike Lee said, never forget what they did to him and to all of us who loved him, speaking of Charlie Kirk. And she kind of pushed back and said, Mike, who is they? Do you mean Mormons? So the real question here is, who executed Charlie Kirk? Was it the Mormons or was it the ex-Mormons? This is what has been captivating the X-verse for the last week and a half.
Well, I kind of think, Dives, that we are members of they. I think that he's pointing to those who have left the church, those who have similar beliefs that Tyler had. And, you know, I think the apostates is who he's talking about.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, we discussed last week in our episode a number of data points that shows, I think, pretty conclusively that Tyler Robinson was raised LDS and even was a member of the church when this assassination took place. I don't have definitive proof of that, but I have pretty good evidence of that. And by the way, I'd like to welcome those people out there in the live chat. Thanks for stopping by. People like Alan, hey, nice to see you. And Cindy, great to see you. And Uprock Hunter as well. And Jean from Latter-day Lady Digest. It is nice to see all of you out here on this Sunday night. Now, this is what people are posting here, saying, well, shit, maybe it was the Mormons after all, because this is a Tyler Robinson just a few moments after the assassination buying himself an ice cream from Dairy Queen. You know, Latter-day Saints really do like their Dairy Queen, man. That is sick. What kind of a psychopath, first of all, kills anyone for assassinate someone and then casually goes into a Dairy Queen after all? And it's well known here. I don't think I'm going way out on a limb here when I say, Randy, that Latter-day Saints are pretty well known for liking Dairy Queen.
Man, no kidding. And, you know, that kind of thing that Tyler engaged in really works up an appetite. And he's been raised in a culture that people go to the temple. What do they do afterwards? They go out to eat, or they go to Dairy Queen. People go to wedding receptions, and what do they do after? Let's meet at Dairy Queen, which is, you know, pretty typical.
Yeah, it is very typical. And we discussed it was last week that it looked like his family was active up until, it's hard to know for certain, but up until at least 2016 and maybe as close as 2019. So maybe when he was 14, 15 years old, he was still an active member of the church. It seems like he's distanced himself from Mormonism since that time. And there's probably a number of reasons for that. Now, this is the well wishes, I guess, that people are sending to Erica Kirk, which is his wife. I want to read this and get your reaction to this. This was posted on X and it got a lot of traction this week. Dear Miss Erica Kirk, on behalf of Latter-day Saints around the world, we send our love, our prayers, our hope, and our faith. I'd personally like to invite you to learn more about the church. You can be sealed to Charlie and the kids for time and all eternity, even after his passing. I know that you may not know what to do, but that's what he likely wishes he could tell you right now in spirit paradise. In the Bible, Jesus gave 12 apostles sealing power or sealing keys. That power meant that marriage and many other wonderful blessings could last forever. These keys unlock marriage together. Nothing can break that lock except for unfaithfulness to a spouse or God. And this person goes on to talk about how Mrs. Kirk should become a Mormon. Is this the right time here, Randy, to be sending these kind of wishes to a grieving spouse?
That disgusts me. I lost my wife to cancer, and it was the hardest thing I ever went through. And I'm telling you, I would lose my crap if religion tried to persuade me to join their group, because that way I could be with my late wife forever. It's disgusting to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly how religion divides our society and really is a blight on the world, trying to send somebody a message like that after their husband was assassinated. That's absolutely peak cringe, but a lot of people were circulating that on X because that's never, in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you never want to miss an opportunity to capitalize on someone in an emotionally vulnerable state so that you can slip them a glass of tainted Kool-Aid. I think I can put that pretty well because that tweet was absolutely horrific. And Spencer Cox has also weighed in on this, and I just want to make sure everybody knows he's an active Latter-day Saint. This has been pretty much confirmed here, but he says that, hey, we don't do those kind of shootings here in Utah because we're filled with Latter-day Saints. Well, actually you did.
3 hours. I was praying that it wouldn't be one of us. That somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country. Sadly, that prayer was not answered the way I hoped for. Just because I thought it would make it easier on us if we could just say, hey, we don't do that here. 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 Hey, we don't do that here.
Yeah, and this reel goes on and on about, hey, we don't do that here, when we're talking about a bunch of Utah killings, Utah abuse situations, and Latter-day Saints in general with a lot of blood on their hands. Hey, we don't do that here. Did Spencer Cox, does he not know his Utah or Mormon history very well?
Yeah, that's pretty gutsy for him to say, especially given the epidemic that's going on in the church with the SA situation and the continual criminal evidence of people committing murders. Tyler's not the only one.
Yeah, the simple fact of the matter is that it does happen in Utah. In fact, Utah is very, very high ranked for CSA. I believe that I've heard both third and fourth as far as CSA is concerned. So yeah, it does happen in Utah. Obviously, that's not generalizable, and we're not trying to say that Latter-day Saints are inherently violent people, but it does happen. And just pretending and trying to pray it away, like the governor say, well, I'm going to say a prayer and hope. He literally said it another time, I believe, that he said he was hoping that it was an immigrant. We're trying to say a prayer so that an immigrant shot someone instead of a Latter-day Saint. I don't understand the point of it all. I think Governor Cox here is very, very tone deaf on what is happening in his own state. And this is over there on By Common Consent, which is a great blog in the Bloggernacle. And they basically have pointed this out. Hey, look, this killer here, he's one of ours. Now what? It's confirmed that the alleged shooter, Charlie Kirk, was raised LDS at a minimum. The call has come from inside the house. Will we answer? And that's the By Common Consent is generally leans more faithful of a blog. So yes, he's one of ours. So Randy, what do we do now? The call's coming from inside the chapel. How are we supposed to stop this in the future?
I see a desperate attempt by the church to stay out of these types of situations in the press. Let's not say bishop, let's say minister. Let's keep the terms about the church far away. I think it's a desperate attempt to stay out of the press because it's becoming overwhelming.
Yeah, we discussed last week the church's very bland statement, which did not, as I recall, even mention Charlie Kirk's name in the shooting. They just said that a high-profile shooting had occurred in Utah. They didn't name Charlie Kirk. They didn't denounce really in a very forceful way. And most importantly, they didn't talk about a pathway forward to stop this from happening in the future. I'm assuming that if you have access to a supernatural an omniscient God, and you're going to speak on his behalf, I assume that that God would be able to solve this problem and give leadership if that God actually cares about the people on this planet. But that's not the type of statements that we get. So no, we're going to get politically neutral statements and a lot of hands off from the senior Mormon church leadership. I also saw this tweet here. Randy, can you read this one that I saw here in one of Facebook posts?
Sure. The shooter was an Exmo, just like most of y'all. See what happens when you leave God for the world? Satan can't wait to attack and manipulate you. Much like the shooter, y'all are quick to bite our heads off or shoot us just for speaking the truth.
Is this, is this what happens when you leave God here, Randy, as you become a psychopathic killer?
Yeah. Actually, once you leave the LDS Church, you begin to kill and rape and pillage. That's just what we all do, and bite heads off.
Well, that's what these very harmful tweets are putting forward. But I've seen no evidence to show that people who leave the church are inherently more violent than they were before. I don't need a celestial dictator to tell me not to shoot people for their words. That's absolutely common sense. So a lot of distasteful takes out there. But leading the charge among these really bad takes out there, Randy, was this one here that came from Ben Shapiro here. And this was retweeted here by Andy Newman, who has a really great Twitter account, by the way. Ben Shapiro says the groups possibly connected to Charlie Kirk's shooting include the following: transgender-oriented, left-wing political ex-Mormon furries. Oh, you got to see this to believe this. This is what is Ben Shapiro saying. This is unbelievable. Having a little bit of lag here.
They're loosely associated or tightly associated groups of transgender-oriented, left-wing political ex-Mormon furries. I mean, like, it's a bizarre melange, apparently. I mean, I was told by my own security today, actually, that some members of groups that have been associated with the investigation that's currently ongoing have been issuing threats to other public figures, myself included. Because obviously they're...
Randy, I'm not. I know a thing or two about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm not an expert in ex-Mormonism here, but I'm not familiar with this type of group. A transgender-oriented, left-wing political ex-Mormon furries. What the hell is Ben Shapiro talking about?
Oh, we have all kinds of those groups walking around my neighborhood. They're transitioning their gender and wearing animal costumes. And I think Ben is completely flattering himself to think that anybody's coming after him.
I am not familiar with those groups. I've never met an ex-Mormon furry myself. I assume you're talking tongue in cheek, but
Yes.
haven't. I'm not familiar with these transgender-oriented ex-Mormon furries. I would like to meet some of them, but I literally never have. And this is really making the rounds. Even Steve Bannon here talked about this. This is he said, Steve Bannon said the shooter was Mormon from a Mormon family. Why is the Mormon church not stepping up? Utah is not the deep red state people think. It may be the bluest of the red states. The media is suppressing this fact. It's got to be addressed. And Word Radio over there says the Steve Bannon asks why Mormons aren't stepping up to talk about the, once again here, ex-Mo furry problem. What? I'm not even familiar with this. I have no idea what these guys. I have no idea what these guys are talking about.
Conspiracy is clearly going to be what they're going to find in this radicalized transgender community, and particularly the subset of the franchise that's out in Utah. What? This is a just like the Catholic Church has a massive problem. So I'm not singling out the Mormons for special treatment. Actually, the evangelical, Charlie be the first to tell you, there's a whole now woke part of the evangelical movement. Mainstream Protestantism has been absorbed by this. One of the reasons nobody goes to the mainstream Protestant churches anymore. How radical they've gotten, particularly parts of the Episcopal Church and the Methodist Church. And then you have the Southern Baptist Conference. But however, the shooter's Mormon, comes from a Mormon family. What is going on out there? And why is the Mormon church not stepping up here in a bigger way? You have to have a debate about this.
Okay, look, real quick. Why isn't the Mormon Church stepping up in a better way? I think that's a valid question from Steve Bannon.
Yeah, but it sounds like somebody had a dream one night about furries and transgenders, and so they took it as reality and started spreading this. I think that's utterly ridiculous. However, he's got a point about the Mormon Church not stepping up. He's recognized that, and I'll validate that.
Yeah, I do think he's right about the church could definitely do more. I don't know where this talking point seems to be coming from Ben Shapiro and Steve Bannon and Word Radio and others, that ex-Mormon furries are behind some international cabal conspiracy to shoot people. Let's finish up his statement here. Get your reaction.
This is not about Utah. Utah is, as everybody knows, and people that think this is a deep red state, you are quite wrong. I think it may be. You may argue it's the bluest of the red states when you look at it. And this needs to be addressed. And it's interesting that's suppressed in all the news reports. I don't know why the news media is not talking about this. It's just a fact, and it's got to be addressed.
Yeah, he brings out the ex-Mormon furries. Ben Shapiro is as well. I've never met an ex-Mormon furry. I have no idea what these guys are talking about. I tried to do some research on it. It seems to be literally detached from all reality. I don't know if it's just a media talking point. I don't know. People need boogeymen to blame things on, but there just is no substance to this, in my opinion, in reality. And it's weird that this is a deflection when we should be talking about how the shooter himself had a lot of MAGA ties. He wore Donald Trump costume. He donated to the Trump campaign, came from a conservative, really a red-leaning household that was very Christian conservative. Everybody's trying to paint this out to be like some weird people. No, I mean, this is one of us who did the shooting. I'm from Utah. I spent a lot of time there, grew up there. This isn't some weird ex-Mormon transgender conspiracy theory. This is just a red-blooded Mormon who left the faith and then made some horrific decisions.
Yeah, Dives, did you ever consider Utah to be one of the bluest red states?
I'm not too sure about that one.
Yeah, I kind of doubt that. And but they've got to blame someone. They've got to come up with they've got to come up with anything that makes the right-wing side look completely innocent and the left-wingers murderous.
I think that's a very good summary. Now, also in the Mormon news this week was right after Charlie was assassinated in cold blood, a detestable. I denounce that with everything that I can. Someone came forward here. George Hodson Zinn came forward and said that he was the one who committed the shooting. He lied about it for I don't know what reason. I still don't have that where. But he was then arrested for obstruction of justice in the shooting. He voluntarily gave the police his phone and confessed to having CSAM on it. The photos of him appear to be in Mormon garments as he was arrested. We're looking for more information about Zinn. But what do you notice in these pictures here about this another reprehensible Mormon in the news this week here, Randy?
Well, first of all, the guy's got to have his head examined to claim that he did it, especially when his phone that he had to turn over has horrible images on it in the name of CSA. And it's pretty obvious that he's LDS, given the fact that he's wearing garment bottoms, and it looks like garment tops too, if you see under his collar. And he's just adding to that epidemic that seems to be spreading throughout the various congregations of the church.
Yeah, it certainly seems like he's a Latter-day Saint. Can't confirm that to a 100%. It's possible that somebody could get Mormon garments and not be LDS, but I find that to be exceptionally rare considering the fact that this was at Utah Valley University. Another disgusting actor in this with yet another Mormon connection. This is all Mormon stuff. This isn't just political rants on this podcast. All of this is big-time Mormon news. And Debbie also does the, don't you have the, Debbie's on Tuesdays with Tim with you, right, Randy?
She comes on from time to time. A lot of times she's working, but she's contributed a lot to Tuesdays with Tim.
Yeah, she tweeted a response to Zinn's arrest here. Can you read that for us?
Sure. Oh, Utah, You really are showing your true colors lately in the news. Breaking news, George Zinn, the first suspect detained after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, was hit with 4 counts related to child porn charges. So the old dude who did something bad was really doing something way worse. Yep. Utah has a CP problem, child pornography, I guess, and a CSA, you know what that is, problem, that make us look like a third world country. Statistics don't lie. That's just what is reported. So it's probably worse than the statistics.
Yeah, do you agree with Debbie's take on this one here, Randy?
Yeah, I do. I don't know about the third world countries. I can't imagine that they could be any worse than what we're finding in the Mormon community, but I do agree with her that once again, it's another example of the behind the scenes with an LDS man who is wearing his garments. So, you know, of course, Lori Vallow went to the temple right up until she went to prison. So, you know, some of these LDS people are doing what looks like, making them look like true believing members. But man, you take a peek behind the scenes and it's pretty scary.
Yeah, in fact, Lori, after she was convicted at her trial in Arizona for the murder of a couple of more people, said that she had not yet been excommunicated. So I do wonder if Tyler is going to be excommunicated, if we are to believe Lori that she wasn't even after she killed multiple people. Now, a couple of reactions here on TikTok here. I've got a couple of reactions. This one is really weird. There's a lot of weird reactions out there, but let's hear this one.
People are saying that he's a Mormon. And that's where I have to step in and say that actually they want you to call them members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Technically, I think you would call them a Jack Mormon if they don't keep the rules. Definitely doesn't seem like he was a Peter priesthood.
Do we really need to be this politically correct and we can't call him an ex-Mormon because you're not supposed to say Mormon? We have to say that he was a former member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Well, yeah, D-Vase, that's a victory for Satan if we say Mormon.
I think we have bigger fish to fry at this particular moment than worrying about nomenclature. And we also notice a lot of times in the news press that the style guide that the church puts out about how they want people to refer to members and to the church itself, a lot of times the press ignores it because it's just too much of a mouthful. Now, speaking of conspiracy theories, ex-Mojo over there on Hellfire Agencies, a part of the Church of Cumorah, has this is another ex-Mormon take here. He says he thinks Tyler Robinson is being framed and that there's a tie-in to the Epstein files. What the heck?
Okay. I want 24-hour surveillance on this guy, Tyler Robinson. I don't want a camera around the corner like Jeffrey Epstein. I want a camera on Tyler Robinson's cell. I want 24-hour surveillance on this kid. I'm not going to get it. I'm asking saying I'm stating now. Today, the date is, it is now 6:09 p.m. Utah time, September 19th, 2025. I, Joe Rollins, who have my own true crime podcast, officially think that this young man, Tyler Robinson, accused of shooting Charlie Kirk a week ago at Utah Valley University, I think he won't make it to trial. I think he will be disappeared. I think he is being framed. I'll have more soon.
These conspiracy theories, Randy, are getting pretty thick out there.
Well, that grabbed my attention. Joe comes on Tuesdays with Tim from time to time, and I was on his show recently. And when he told me that he was going to, or that he had a theory about this, I told him I was all ears. I would like to hear more. So I'm just waiting to see what happens. But yeah, there are a lot of theories out there for sure.
Seems like a pretty big conspiracy theory. If you ask me, I haven't seen any evidence that shows that Tyler was working with any groups. He seems to be a lone wolf. Now, I like to follow the evidence where it leads, but I haven't seen any evidence leading to any Antifa groups like President Trump has said, or to ex-Mormon furries like Ben Shapiro or anyone else. So I'll be waiting for that. Now, as far as keeping an eye on him while he's in his cell, That much I can agree with. We don't want another Epstein situation. I am with you 100%. But he needs to be protected to go to trial so that we can have justice in our country, so that he can face the music and be held responsible for his reprehensible actions. That's how we, in my opinion, that's how we can best honor Kirk's death, is by having the rule of law take action and not some vigilantes or something else, in my opinion. So Rio for Life, thanks for joining us. I got a couple of other reactions here from Mormons related sphere here about Tyler.
As a Mormon who knows people that were there, who knows people that live in this neighborhood, I have something very interesting to say about the man who recently did the unaliving, allegedly. He was a straight, conservative Mormon. At the time when he did the unaliving, however, he was a homosexual, liberal, ex-Mormon, which usually is an atheist. The media was very excited to point out that he was a Mormon. The opposite of a Mormon is an ex-Mormon. No one rejects Mormon teachings as much as ex-Mormons. I'm pointing this out for two reasons. Number one is when the news media found out that he used to be a Mormon, they got really excited about this. And other ex-Mormon content creators and ex-Mormon forums on Reddit and all over the place were adding this to their deceptive narrative that Mormons are these terrible people. They're violent. They're bad. You can't trust them. The list just goes on and on and on of things that I've heard. And ironically, the very group that was saying these things, turns out that he's a member of that group. My second point is why this doesn't matter. At least doesn't matter in the way that the people that were attacking Mormons were saying that it mattered. Liberals that I know, not a single one of them believes it's okay to unalive people. They're horrified by this whole thing happening. Every member of the LGBTQ community that I know is very against unaliving people. They would be horrified of this ever happening. And every ex-Mormon that I know is absolutely against unaliving people. There are outliers. There are radical members of every single group that do and say things that are outside the norm of that group. And as someone who, for pretty much their entire life, has been the victim of generalizations and being put down because I'm in a minority group as a Mormon, please do not in any way put down someone because they're a member of the LGBTQ community, or because they happen to have liberal ideas, or because they're an ex-Mormon, or for any other reason. Unaliving people is horrible. Now
we're going to break this up into two segments. First of all, is he off to the right start? Do you have a reaction here, Randy, to this TikTok?
You know, he's got a sandwich theory, in my opinion. He starts off what I consider to be not too cool, not very truthful. Then he throws some great information in the middle, but then he slaps another piece of bread, as we'll see at the end of this video. I don't think he has any receipts to prove that about Tyler, what he was and what he is now. I think that's pure speculation on his part, a pretty bold speculation.
Yeah, there's been a lot of speculating going on. We don't have all of the motives. I know we have some of the text messages and we have some of the bullet engravings, but people are trying to paint narratives about the quote unquote other side all the time on this one. Let's finish this one off. Sorry, I'm going to reload it.
Every member,
I'm going to
because
reload
they're
it here.
ex-Mormon, or for any other reason, unaliving people is horrible. Now that you can put down. But don't generalize any of those groups with them as your poster child. This individual does not represent the belief of any of those three groups. Their actions do not represent the actions of any of those three groups. For my entire life, every place that I've lived until now, I have been a minority. Living in Idaho is the only exception. I grew up in Washington, went to medical school in Washington, did my residency in Missouri, and everywhere I went, people had these ridiculous, garbage, weird, twisted, horrible ideas about what I believed and what I did as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It was a terrible feeling. I would get panic attacks when I would hear someone say the word Mormon, because I knew that they would immediately start saying terrible things about me that were wrong, and I would launch into a multiple-hour discussion where I'd have to defend myself from these horrible attacks that were totally twisted, and they wouldn't believe a thing that I said.
Okay, let's just real quick here. Does the media, Randy, have this all wrong? Are they painting the wrong narrative about Mormons and trying to make them out to be dangerous?
You know, I think it depends on the media outlet that we're talking about. Some are a little guarded about what they say, and then others come out. We've got some that are incredibly free with their speculations that are trying to make claims that we don't know if are true or not.
Yeah, I definitely with you. Let's finish this last one reel off here. Here we go.
Homophobia. And in Utah, it comes from Mormons towards other groups because Mormons are the majority. I had a friend in Washington who was a Buddhist. Awesome guy, great guy. And he told me when he moved from Utah to Washington, where I lived, that in Utah, the Mormons wouldn't play with him, didn't like him because he was a Buddhist. And then it occurred to me that the very thing that I'd been experiencing in Washington with people saying they couldn't be my friend in middle school, or people saying weird stuff and horrible stuff about me because I was a Mormon in Washington, that he'd experienced these same things from Mormons in Utah. Jesus said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Abstain from harsh judgment. Abstain from putting other people down and excluding other people because they're not a member of your group. Try to listen and understand other people and their perspectives and where they're coming from, and keep the commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. And you don't have to be a Mormon or a Christian to follow these ideas. They're present in nearly every religion. And they're present among most atheists that I know, humanism. And they're present in your own conscience. I don't know what drove this individual to do exactly what he did. But it wasn't because he was a member of the LGBTQ community. It wasn't because he was an ex-Mormon. It wasn't because he was a liberal. More than ever, we need to be kind and loving and understanding of other people's viewpoints, of other people's practices, of other people's beliefs. Anyway, there was a lot of things that I was tempted to say in this video. Part of me wanted to use this as an opportunity to attack back at all the ex-Mormons who are constantly attacking videos of my beliefs, twisting them and distorting them and misrepresenting them in terrible ways. Part of me wanted to fight back. I saw literally videos of ex-Mormons who were taking scriptures out of the Book of Mormon, twisting them, and then presenting them as this is why Mormons would do this sort of thing and why you shouldn't trust them and why they're evil, when they thought he was a Mormon, not an ex-Mormon. The wrong thing to do would be to do the very thing to them that they were doing to me. That would be the wrong thing to do.
I do have a couple of questions for you, Randy, because you already mentioned the Book of Mormon with the fact that the opening in the 4th chapter of the Book of Mormon, we have a divinely sanctioned assassination that is trumpeted. That person in the Book of Mormon, Nephi, went on to become one of God's chosen people. Now he's wanting to say that the Book of Mormon doesn't condone divine violence. I find that to be highly disingenuous.
Yeah, and that's, Dives, that's just one of several examples where we see an incredibly violent action that's condoned by God or even commanded by God. And, you know, that's the middle of the sandwich that we first heard him say. And then he turns around and starts degrading the ex-Mormons, those who have left the church. Just as soon as he finishes saying not to be judgmental, he turns around and says how judgmental or how much he, dislikes the ex-Mormon community.
Yeah, he talked about how we need to be kind, and I find myself nodding along with him and saying that Tyler probably doesn't represent all evil ex-Mormons or even all regular Mormons, that Tyler is his own person and not representative of any larger group, because, again, it looks like Tyler was mostly a lone wolf. He played a couple of video games, but he was ideologically kind of vacant, and then all of a sudden he's going to end it with a lot of animus towards ex-Mormons. He just can't help himself. I find that to be a pretty distasteful reel, which is why I brought it to your attention. Now, Randy, before we let you go here, what projects are you working on? How can people get in touch with you?
Oh, well, I appreciate that, Dives. I've just recently started my own channel. It's called Momo Nomo, and it's Life After Mormonism. Gene and I, by the way, I would love it if anyone would go to that channel and take a look, and if you like it, subscribe.
Boom, done.
Nice. See, there you go. I also do a lot with Gene Judson on Latter Daily Digest and Megan Connor at third_verse. We also have our Sunday show. We have Tuesdays with Tim, as you know, and Gene and I do a lot of interviews, but then we have our new Sunday show, which is called the Salt Lake Expositor, which we did today. It's 1:00 every Sunday Pacific time. And that's where it's a call-in show. And it's where we basically cover what's happened in the news and what we can do about it as humans, not LDS or former LDS, but as humans. And I know that we're getting ready to announce a new channel by Megan and her friend Kirsten. They're going to be launching a channel that I think will be very entertaining for people. And Jean and I will be helping her announce that this coming week.
Well, that sounds like a lot of projects that you've got going on, Gene. I'm very impressed with the amount of content that you are able to put forward. It has been a pleasure ruminating with you on the Great and Spacious Beehive. Thanks so much for coming on the program.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor for me, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
All of you out there, if you could hit the like, hit the subscription, I would greatly appreciate that. Always think celestial, and remember.
And remember, sorry, I fell asleep. No unhallowed hand can stop the Mormon News Roundup from progressing.